This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Well, gentlemen, I have some simple questions for you. Won't our renewable energy resources like water sources be taken over if we don't clear our debts?
Pardon?
Won't our renewable energy resources like water sources be taken over if we don't clear our debts?
If we don't what?
Clear our debts. Uganda's debts.
Thank
you very much. Thank you very
much.
much.
They will be taken away.
Thank you very much still. Does taking precedence mean neglect?
I'm sorry, what?
Does taking precedence mean neglect?
No, it means prioritizing on one over the other.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Will you fear to sleep because you fear to dream?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you fear to sleep because you fear to dream?
Sleep is a natural cause.
Thank you very much. If your mother is hungry, for example, do you go to plant rice, for example, and or solve the problem or get immediate solution, for example, getting the food?
Excuse me, sir, we are debating oil and gas, not food.
Thank you very much. Simple analogy. You can rest, please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, three things. Number one, precedence. Number two, urgency. Number three, sustainability. Number four, exhaustion. Number five, climate change. Now, ladies and gentlemen, looking at precedence, when you are taking precedence, when we are actually expanding oil and gas sector, taking it as a precedence over development of renewable resources of energy, we're actually not neglecting. That's number one thing that they should take note of. Now, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at our case. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we go to the problem of urgency, as we posed, ladies and gentlemen, we talked of the poverty line, we talked of the debt burden. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we are to look at the parameters that have set Uganda, those are the problems we are facing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how will the renewable sources of energy be actually solve these problems? Now, ladies and gentlemen, actually we'll develop the renewable resources of energy because now the debt burden is increasing. They will be taken over. So the question of sustainability in that regard is actually neglected. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they go to climate change. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we are to look at the expansion of oil and gas sector, we shall be having use of liquefied petroleum gas, now which is mainly used in households, which would be key replacement to use of charcoal and firewood. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we are replacing use of of firewood and charcoal, that means we are saving our forests, and in the long run, these forests are actually absorbing the carbon dioxide emissions that will be coming from the use of oil and gas sector. Now, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the crippling economy, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the 73.8 debt burden. Now, if you have to look at the issue, the principle of urgency, how does their actual solvency solve our problem? It does not actually solve. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we told you in taking precedence, we are not actually neglecting in that if, as we told you, for example, the magnitude of expected investments is estimated at $15 to $20 as from our first speaker in a period of 3 to 5 years. Now, which would triple the country's foreign exchange. Now, ladies and gentlemen, within a period of 3 to 5 years, we are tripling the country's foreign exchange. That means in the long run, that we'll be able to clear our problems, we'll be able to clear our debts, and be in a position to solve our problems. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now as we told you, it's not neglecting, then we can go back and develop what they are talking about, because even the renewable sources of energy have been placed, but they have not solved the problem. Now, if we are taking a leaf, as the third speaker told you, about like, for example, United Arab Emirates, these are countries that are actually giving us these loans. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they are developed, but what did they use? They used the expansion of oil and gas sector, and they are not developed, and therefore, if you have to look at the issue of the exhaustion, has it exhausted? Even though it is exhausted, but the development cannot be exhausted. Now, the development that you have achieved that actually can be the one to be used to develop the renewable source of energy is always settled. We are actually based on principle of urgency, precedence, and sustainability, and therefore, in that, we stand to win the case.
The panel. If you cannot do great things, then do small things in a great way. Question 1. Would you rather save the economy than saving the lives of the people?
Ladies and gentlemen, people below the poverty line are sleeping hungry. That means they are dying. If you are developing the renewable energy resources, that means you will leave the people to die.
Thank you very much. Okay. Can an economy work out without people?
Ladies and gentlemen,
can an economy stand without people?
Same issue, same question.
You still don't know. Do you consent to the fact of cost push inflation in oil and gas industry?
Pardon me, please.
Do you consent? Okay, do you accept the fact that there is cost push inflation in oil and gas industry? Do you accept?
Now, ladies and
Do you
gentlemen.
know it or you don't know it?
Thank you
You
very
don't know
much.
it. Thank you
Let
very
me
much.
answer. Let me answer.
No.
Okay, answer yourself.
Does man need consistent and unlimited use of energy for their daily lives?
Pardon me, please.
Does man need consistent and unlimited use of energy for their daily lives?
If you have heard to our case, then you should be able to answer that question, because we told you about sustainability. We told you that
I don't want
actually
explanations, please. My time.
you cannot depend on the
time.
answer we
My
should
time.
give, please.
If you've developed the Albertine region and they all went out after the development, when the people there lose jobs,
Pardon
they
me,
will lose
please.
the jobs, right?
You're answering yourself.
I'm asking you, they'll lose the jobs, right?
Ask, okay, please.
If you develop the Albertine region where there is oil and they all went out, and they all deposits
Now,
went out,
in expanding the oil and gas sector, we're actually developing the whole country, not just the Albertine region.
do you know that agriculture is the major source of Uganda's economy?
Yes,
It's the
ladies and
backbone of
gentlemen,
Uganda's
but
economy.
ladies and gentlemen, even agriculture needs funding that can be got from the expansion of oil and gas sector.
Renewable and oil and gas, which one produces more carbon?
Actually, the carbon produced in the oil and gas sector can be counteracted by the use of liquefied petroleum engineering, because it will actually save the forests, which can absorb the carbon dioxide emissions, which is your problem.
I rest my case. You cannot
Thank you
answer.
very much.
Judges, why do you look at now here, my dear judges? One, they accept that agriculture is the major source of Uganda's economy. It's the backbone of Uganda's economy, my dear judge. And by the mere fact of accepting that oil and gas produces more carbon, my dear judges, by the statistics that we gave you, that is 91% produced by oil and gas, and then 1.4%, my dear judges, produced by renewable energy sources, means that the over accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, my dear judges, and the cutting down, of course, as they're looking for this oil, my dear judges, they're going to dig the ground, my dear judges, leading to soil exhaustion. Meaning, without agriculture, my dear judges, which could have been developed to pay the debts that they talked about, my dear judges, because they talked of the debts to be paid, my dear judges, so they cannot take away the important water bodies, my dear judges. It means that living around the renewable energy sources, my dear judges, to develop agriculture, my dear judge, because we believe that currently Uganda, my dear judges, is selling its electricity, and that is source of money, my dear judge. You're not only going to depend on oil and gas industry, my dear judges, and that's why we ask them the question, saving their lives and saving the economy of the people, my dear judge. We need the lives of the people because the economy cannot run without people, my dear judge. It is these people that will be employed in the different sectors, my dear judge. Of course, we're not supporting oil and gas. They can be employed in the oil and gas in renewable energy sectors such as electricity, my dear judges, windmill production, because we have engineers in Uganda, my dear judges. So we don't see why they are talking about saving the economy over saving the lives of the people, my dear judges. Secondly, my dear judges, they consent to the fact that there is cost push inflation in oil and gas, my dear judge. Recently, when there was low diesel and petrol in the country, my dear judges, we looked at the instant rise of this cost, my dear judge, and this makes the lives of people hard, my dear judges. People who have cars, it becomes difficult for them to earn a living, my dear judge, and therefore they're the ones that are causing the crippled economy, my dear judges. Because if agriculture is the backbone of Uganda, my dear judges, and it's already being depleted by the oil and gas, my dear judge, the backbone of the economy is being depleted, then how is the economy going to stand? Hence a crippled economy that's being caused by the oil and gas that they're advocating for, my dear judge. So please allow me say this, my dear judges. Lastly, my dear judges, we look at a condition where team opposition, my dear judges, are wanting to improve oil and gas sector, my dear judge. I rest my case.
I will restate tonight's resolution. The development of renewable energy should take precedence over expansion of oil and gas. I feel, for one, that both sides, for a larger part of the debate, ignored the words should take precedence. Because if the words should take precedence or exist, we should never dwell mostly on the evils of the other side. Because the resolution itself says you are not ignoring one over the other. Team affirmative, you're not ignoring renewable energy over oil and gas. And same to you, team negative. However, an appreciation of this resolution only happened to a farmer one, and the rest of the other farmers seemed to just come and preach the evils of oil and gas. Team negative, you went along with that, and I only heard it from negator 4, who comes and distinguishes and says, is taking precedence, ignoring this. And because we are not ignoring it, the renewable energy resources will come in insofar as we make sure that after we have had as maximal returns as possible from oil and gas, we switch to renewable alternatives. However, that burden falls squarely on team affirmative. And therefore, on those grounds, I punish you more. On the other grounds, marks of style. Team Negator's fourth speaker. You seem not to appreciate the purpose of cross-examination, both in the courtesy owed to your fellow cross-examiner in answering your questions as succinctly as possible, but also in indulging in almost a second speech during your cross-examination speech. You come and you're substantiating on things that Negator 2 ought to have done, or on clarifications Negator 3 ought to have done. You did the role well and good, but it is not your role. You fail to give basic courtesy to the speaker. You indulge in explanations in the end when you've been asked close-ended questions. Why do that? And at first he seems to fight back, but you force him to capitulate, because at the end he also stops asking you close-ended questions and begins asking you, this over this, what would you take? Such that you have to explain yourself. I punished you on those grounds. I reduced my judgment of this debate to those aforementioned comments and to the address of clash points.
Thank you so much. It was really a good debate. I appreciate both teams for putting up good arguments and good submissions. To start with, in today's resolution, there's a contention on which specific type of resolution we were having before this August House. Team Affirmative was arguing in the perspective of policy, whereas Team Negative was arguing in the perspective of value. However, as we told you before, there are certain resolutions we as the panel of jury can set when that resolution can be argued in the perspective of policy and the perspective of value. So it is on the ability and the competence of a team to prove why they advocate for that specific type. I will start with Team Negative. Team Negative argued that it is a value debate because it was looking at priorities. It was looking at comparison of one sector over the other. It was looking at comparison of renewable energy over oil and gas, which I credit them. And to me, given by the submissions we were able to give, they win it when they say it is a value debate. However, likewise to Team Affirmative argues in the angle of a policy resolution. Why? They say this is a policy resolution because given the parameters we have set as Uganda, we have not yet seen the parliament make any legislation of taking a precedence where the oil and gas or the renewable energy industry is prioritized over the other. So given the fact that for them they were restricting their parameters to Uganda and they were using the parliament as one of their bodies, which has not yet made a legislation of priority of one industry against the other, still I credit them, and they also win it when they argue that it is a policy. So both teams, given the arguments that you bring before this August House, you win to argue whether it is policy, to argue whether it is value. However, ladies and gentlemen, today's resolution had 2 points of subject matter to talk about. One, we needed an argument to do with the impact of what you are advocating for on climate change. Then we also looked at the impact of what you are advocating for towards economic development. However, it is absurd that both teams, to a large extent, they addressed towards economic development. However, at least one of the speakers in their closing speeches, Negator 4 tried to bring in about something to do with climate change, though it was more on Team Affirmative to me that really tried to appreciate the two segments, talking about economic development and climate change, because Team Affirmative, they told you, or they brought in the impact of the 91% contribution of the oil and gas to the affection of the climate. To Team Negative, I only had the argument of climate change in the closing speech. Now, where did I base my marks from? These were the clash points on which I based my marks, ladies and gentlemen. One, Team Negative advocates for the oil and gas because of the crippling economy that we are having in Uganda, looking at the 73.8 million debt burden. An issue that was not addressed by Team Affirmative. Team Affirmative, you did not tell this August House and the panel of jury that yes, as we are advocating for renewable energy, this is the criteria that we have said that we shall set or that we shall base on to address the issue of the debt burden. Maybe that as we are prioritizing, or we are taking precedence of the renewable energy, we are going to do this and this. It is going to, we are going to take up channels so that it provides money in such and such a way to address the problem. So that was a point that went unanswered.
Firstly, I want to appreciate both teams for a rich and heated debate. Now, first, I want to agree with Judge Solomon on the first issue of this being a policy or value resolution. Personally, I felt, as per the understanding presented by Team Affirmative, in line with the existence of a status quo and the need to actually implement this after we have said, let's say, the renewable energy should take precedence. You were right for that, and I did not penalize you. Similarly, Team Negative's understanding of this being a value resolution, weighing in between the value of if we undertake renewable energy sources or the oil and gas. I felt that was equally right. Now, I'll try to summarize what I felt was the stem of your argument and how both teams were able to back that up with qualitative points. Team Negative. The whole of your case was built around, you presented the current state of Uganda in terms of its economy and the poverty, and the need to address that as the most current, the most pressing problem in Uganda. I personally felt that was a very good strategy. And then, Team Affirmative is now coming and saying, much as the oil and gas sector actually offers a better avenue in developing the economy, the question is, at what cost? Are we together? So now I have to come down to how you backed up your case with qualitative points. Team Affirmative came and gave us an argument of these resources being exhaustible, the oil and gas. And that was a very strong point that they kept on re-echoing until one of the negatives brought in the issue of the benefits, the massive benefits that we shall obtain from the oil and gas will not get exhausted. The developments that will have been made out of the oil and gas will not be exhausted. So at that point, I felt the issue of exhaustion squared out. Team Affirmative came and raised another point of pollution, which Team Negative did not rebut or did not rebut fully. Team Affirmative raised another point of the capacity of Uganda, which was the parameter, to actually implement or to go ahead and fund. Do they have the resources? Do they have the technical capability to implement or to opt for oil and gas? Team Negative, I did not get a proper response to that point.
Okay. For this resolution today, like the previous judges mentioned, we were looking at economic growth vis-a-vis climate change in the wake of renewable energy and oil and gas sector. Both of you had a burden of proving that whatever option you were prioritizing was going to be able to be answerable to both economic growth and climate change. Now, Team Affirmative, in my opinion, for the case of economic growth, you did not fully and satisfactorily convince us that you could be able to sustain the economy with the renewable energy resources. First of all, Team Negative, because you questioned Team Negative very many times. However, there was a question that was left unanswered from your side. They asked you, they gave you their contribution, the oil and gas sector's contribution to Uganda's GDP, the estimated one. However, they asked you, the third speaker asked you, the fourth speaker asked you, sorry, second and fourth, they asked you, account for the contribution of renewable energy resources to Uganda's GDP. Because you questioned their employment, opportunities, sustainability. They asked you that. You did not answer that. It is the third speaker that tried to answer it by saying that if we ever improve the renewable energy resources, we shall one day make money out of it. However, Team Negative, on the role of climate change, you totally failed. You even highlighted that we have a huge public debt. They told you the government of Uganda is a crippled economy at the point. How are we going to be able to fund? They pointed out it is the private companies that are actually carrying out the what? The mining of the oil. How is the government of Uganda going to be able to carry out the mining of the oil when they do not have the money? You did not answer that. They also questioned you on environmental degradation and climate change, and you did not answer that. So at the end of the day, I faulted you on speaker roles. I faulted you on your failure to rebut compared to their failure to rebut. Team Affirmative, you failed to answer our questions in regards to economic growth. That means also your case was weak. However, their case was weaker.
I will start, first of all, to thank both the debaters. Team Affirmative, you came with a policy kind of a mentality, the same as Team Negators. You know, I always say in a debate is how you bring your arguments. Just as my first judge talked about that at times, we can set a resolution to look at how you come with it. And if you come it in the manner of a policy and you defend your points, we are good to go. Now, I'll base my judgment into three. One, the strategy part, style, and I go more of how you presented your points individually. Let me just read what sustainability is. Maybe you'll understand and know what sustainability means. When we talk about sustainability is meeting the needs of the present as much as we are caring for the future. And there are three principles of sustainability. One, economic viability. We have environmental protection. In terms of environmental protection, I credit more the fourth negator for coming up with the climate change kind of an issue. But it was too late. Very, very late, because that work was supposed to be done by your first speaker, second speaker, and your third speaker. Even at least I could have heard from your third speaker as he's coming to clash it. You bring a new topic. When you come to a debate, the moment you start bringing a new topic, now we regard it as a rumor. Trust me. Now, a lot of questions were left unanswered for both sides. Question about how the living standards of people are, the economic growth. You even started asking questions that are not related to what we are discussing about. However much I'm not punishing you because of that. Maybe it was your strategy. You came up with it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, fourth speakers, both of you, when it comes to a cross-examination kind of a pact, fourth affirmer, that is not how they ask questions. You're asking questions, you demand him, he is wasting almost 2 minutes of yours. Same to fourth negator, however much you have helped the negators in terms of raising your standards and scores, you can't ask 4 questions and expect your case whole approach to come up with the 4 questions. That is what you did. You ask questions within 30 seconds, you are done. Exhaust the question and let the question become leading kind of a question that is leading your opponent to accepting your case approach. Are we together? Now, is of this, that style, to be sincere, I was happy apart from the 4 speakers. Me, I was not impressed with the 4 speakers. But I gave you a 15 in style. I differed in content because I felt persuaded with the content Affirmative came with. They came with a lot of statistics, came with a lot of houses and stuff. I gave Team Affirmative a 25. I gave Team Negators a 24. Strategy, you all have a 26. Totaling up to a 66% Team Affirmative and 65% Team Negators. Now, is of this, it's not a unanimous judgment, it's 4 against 1. The Team Affirmative has a 64%, a difference of 1 with Team Negators with a 64%. Thank you so much. God bless you. Team Negators take the day with a 65 over 64.